All right, welcome everybody. If you missed it, the Unrivaled just had their draft today, November 20th, and it was a very unique format. It was very interesting to watch. There was some good, there was some bad, there was some cringe. If you want to see my review and breakdown of all that, you can check on the video at the end of this one or check on my channel. But I'm going to talk about, with all the teams selected, who actually ended up with the best team. And I think the first thing to talk about when we're talking about teams that are unrivaled is the concept of my viewpoint and the way that the coaches and they talked about in the draft is this feels more like the off-season development training league. There's going to be competitiveness because the players are competitive, but it feels more lighthearted and more like these coaches want to develop these players and have built these teams specifically to develop these players in their off season and have an alternative instead of going to China or wherever. Now, the other thing about 3v3 is it is a different format and it'll favor different skills than a 5v5 game. So in 3v3, it's going to be more fast paced. It's going to be more about individuality, individual plays, because there's just less people on the court. There's going to be more playmaking opportunity. Now, the court is smaller. Sometimes in 3v3, they do a half court. This is just a reduced court. So it's 70 feet instead of 94 feet. So they won't have to run as far baseline to baseline. However, it's still going to be fast paced because it's full court. There are going to be players breaking out, sprinting. It's going to be less plotting, setup, that kind of stuff that you might see in a WNBA offense. Now, with all that said, I'm excited to kind of break down these teams. And for those that missed the draft format, the real gist of it was they had pods of players broken down to like different roles, positions, that kind of stuff. And then they made sure that every team had one player from each of these teams, except for the two teams, of course, have wild cards. But with that said, I think there is a clear team that is the best in this league. And so I'm going to start with kind of the teams that I feel like are not as good. And those are going to be the Phantom and the Rose. So I think that these teams have great players on them. I think for the Phantom, the real issue for them is Brittany Griner as a big is just going to be very slow for a 3v3 format. When she is on the court, she is going to give you some good like strength and positioning. There's not as many players in the league that can actually just go toe to toe with BG, but she will get frustrated. She will get tired. And so she's not going to be on the court the entire time. So their big three probably is Jack Young, Marina Mayberry, and Satu. But I don't think that those three players are necessarily like 1v1 beasts or creators. I think Satu's great, and she's probably the big that'll fit the best. I think Tiffany Hayes has obviously proved herself. I feel like this team talent level is just not in the same level. The Rose, I think that this team could be amazing. So this team has a sneaky potential to actually be better than I'm rating them. They have Angel Reese, who's going to be a board monster, and she will hustle. But she's not a big, as far as like bigs go, they don't have anyone that's going to match up with the other bigs very well. There's going to be a lot of rejections. Kalia Copper is money. Kalia Copper is probably the best player on this team. Well, actually, not probably, she is the best player on this team, and she's the best playmaker, although she's not going to be able to do it all on her own. Chelsea Gray is a great facilitator and passer, but again, she's still a little bit hobbled. She's not a run up and down the court player. Lexi Hall and Brittany Sykes actually might secretly be players that get a lot of playing time that are underrated on this team, because they are hustling players that have a lot of great shot making potential and that kind of stuff. So it'll really depend on if they overachieve or not. It's really going to depend on, I think, those two players and how they fill it. Now, the next tier of players is going to be the Mist, the Laces, and the Lunar Owls. Now, the Laces, the reason I give them a nod is because I think Alyssa Thomas, although not the Sarah and Stephanie Dolson, not as necessary the run up and down the court players, they have those hustle players. Kelsey Plum's going to play full court. Kayla McBride can get scrappy. Courtney Williams has an amazing jump shot. She can go 1v1. We saw it in the finals and in games where she took over. Kate Martin is a dog. Like, this team has shooters. They have hustlers. They have a facilitator in Alyssa Thomas who's going to be able to throw it full court and catch people on the run for easy twos. Like, they're going to have some games where they rock some of the upper teams. I think that they have great potential. Now, For the Lunar Owls, again, this is Fee's team. I expect the Founders teams to be pretty good. And Fee's team, they're mainly saddled by the fact that they have a wild card. But unlike the Phantom, they have Alicia Gray, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Natasha Cloud. With Fee, those 4 alone, and Shakira Austin and is a great player. But those 4 players alone will be formidable. Alicia Gray won the skill challenge at the All-Stars. She is an all-around great player, can do things. Skylar Diggins-Smith, talent-wise, is amazing. Potentially attitude and being a teammate, who knows? But I'm hoping that Fee sets her right, that there is something there that kind of like gets through there, because Fee's going to own this team leadership-wise. They have it. And Natasha Cloud, also as a veteran, is more of a vibes merchant, so hopefully she is able to keep it together. But who knows? The Phoenix Mercury get wild every now and then, so who knows? But I think that Natasha Cloud is going to help this team and be a really good presence for them and facilitate. So I expect the Lunar Owls to be very competitive in this league. And then last but not least, the Mist. So the Mist, again, you have Stewie, you have Aaliyah Edwards, who's like a young big that's going to be fresh and running. You have Dejanay Carrington, fast up and down the court, going to be able to fly, going to be able to play defense. Jewel Lloyd, who on her best nights is going to make a shot from anywhere, full court, whatever you have it, she's going to be sinking. You have Courtney Vandersloot to fill in, to facilitate a little bit. I think she is maybe the weakness of this team. Then you have Rakia Jackson, who I think is honestly was the best player in Pod D, and I think that, I mean, depending on who the wildcards are, but is the best player in Pod D. And I think that this team just has at least 5 players that are just like absolutely yes, and arguably 6 players that are like, all these players are going to contribute and could see playing time, and I wouldn't be mad at the combination that you put out there. Now, all that said, last not least, finally, the team I think is clear and far away in a tier of its own and the best team in this league is the Vinyl. And I don't think this is a surprise because, again, 3v3 is a league where you are trying to have playmakers and create plays and be dynamic. And you have Arike and Ryan Howard, who in this list of players are 2 of just the fastest, quickest takeover players. Arike, again, like you saw in the All-Stars, can just go off and go lights out and you're going to lose the game. Ryan Howard can do a similar thing. She can take over the game. All of these other teams have like one player that's like kind of in that guard flyer position, that shooter position that can take over a game, but not a lot of them have like 2 that are just like Ryan Howard is the best player on Alicia Gray's team. Arike Ngumbala is the best player on Sachi's. Like these are 2 stars of a team. They're just on a team. And then you have Aaliyah Boston, who not only is she a big, not only is she younger, but Aaliyah has a very high IQ. She's a great facilitator as well as a big. She plays good defense. And then you pair her with Tarika Hamby, who also has big experience, can run. Ray Burrell also run. And Jordan Cana is way better than people give her credit for. She is a lot better player. Like this year when I watched her play, there are many times where I saw her giving the fever fits, and I think that she is a player that will surprise people on this team and be a great. When she subs in, she's going to be good, especially in the 3v3 format. But I think that because they have that 3, Arike, Ryan Howard, Aaliyah Boston, Tarika Hamby, like kind of like switching in between that like post roll, like that is gonna be trouble for anyone to deal with. Like it's, I think that, when I look across these teams, it's like the Rose have Kalia Copper is that player for them, Jewel Lloyd is that player for the Mist. I think Fee is probably the closest thing to that player on the Luna Owls. Phantom don't really have a player that takes over that big. They have players that have had moments, but they're not consistent, and they're like 3-point shooters, or they're not consistent at putting up those kind of performances. And then the Laces, you have maybe Kelsey Plum on a good night, but again, not as consistent. Courtney Williams maybe not as consistent. So you don't have the consistent greatness where Ryan Howard and Arike are just they're them. They're so good. I think if these teams come in and they're 100% serious and they're gunning for it, I think that the Vinyl take it. Now, with all that said, let me know down in the comments who you think is actually the best team. Was I wrong? Do you agree with my tier list? Do you disagree with my tier list? Is there someone I'm overlooking? And Yeah, remember to like, subscribe. Remember, as always, you're going to be amazing today because you are amazing. And I'll catch you next episode.